Who's your commander?
Good luck.
Equip.
Move to combat. Resolves.
Right.
Now, before you attack
Does
me-
anyone have an answer?
Well played.
Good game.
Hello Commander players, this is Jumbo Commander, and today I have a little bit of a different video. I'm going to give you a channel update, but also I'm going to take a quick look at 4 completely different Commander decks. So the first thing I want to do is say thank you. I took on a little bit of a project. I was looking for Commander players who needed some help from the hurricane and flooding that took place in Texas. My goal was to try and send out Commander decks to people that lost their collection. And I have to say, my call for Commander players who needed help, it was answered. In the end, I had 22 people saying, please send a Commander deck. And I had a bunch more people saying, how can I help? This is awesome, I want to be a part of it. I have to say I was floored, not only from the tales of people losing everything and dealing with this horrible tragedy, but also the hundreds of other kind words and offers of help. And the help was needed. I was over my head. I had about 6 Commander decks put together to send out, and there were 22 people that had just had their lives destroyed. And so I needed to find a way to solve this. My biggest help came from Mark. Thank you, Mark. He emailed me and said, how can I be a part of this? How can I help? And I said, I don't know. I don't have a handle on the situation. And Mark sent me this picture and said, just tell me where they're going. I mean, I used to be surprised at the generosity of people, but after I've done this and seen so many people looking out for their fellow Commander players, offering help or just giving encouragement, I'm really bolstered. I'm really far less pessimistic than I used to be. But this newfound energy didn't put Commander decks together. So I want to walk you through 4 quick and awesome Commander decks that you can easily throw together, whether you're making it for yourself or whether you're sending them to Texas. The first deck I have for you is Mazarek. What Mazarek does is pumps your team whenever things are sacrificed. So the strategy is to go really wide and then sacrifice a bunch of stuff to pump everything up. And Michaeloth fits perfectly because that Devour is sacrificing, and it'll create a ton of tokens to go wide. And I was thinking to go along with that, we should go heavy into Eldrazi because the Scions and the Spawns are so strong. So cards like From Beyond, Sifter of Skulls, Smothering Abomination, and Catacomb Sifter. They all create these tokens that you can either buff or sacrifice them to buff other things. And Spawning Bed is a land that sacrifices to create more of these things. That had me thinking about other pieces of mana ramp that sacrifice, like Commander Sphere, Hedron Archive, Mind Stone, and those had me thinking of artifacts like Tamio's Journal, which creates the clue tokens which you sacrifice. Also, Victimize is a spell that can support this creature recursion idea, or Smallpox. So it's all about sacrificing, pumping up your team, creating huge armies, and controlling the board. The next Commander deck that I wanted to make was Gahiji Honored One. This is also a go-wide strategy because it'll buff all of your attacking creatures. So Avenger of Zendikar creating 0/1 plants doesn't matter if you're giving them +2/+0. And Martial Coup is really important because you're going to be encouraging your opponents to attack each other, letting the board get out of control, so you need to wipe it and refill your token attacking. So if you're going to be creating a mess of tokens everywhere and you're going to be encouraging your opponents to attack, Curse of Perdition, Bitter Feud, and Sin Prodder are all interesting cards that have your opponents pitted against each other. And that's thematic for Gahiji because they get the Gahiji trigger as well if they're swinging at each other. And then let's just finish out the game with a card like Insult to Injury or Treacherous Terrain. The next Commander deck I have for you is Daxos the Returned. This is an enchantment-heavy deck, and the deck straight out of the precon is pretty strong, but we gotta go in for curses, especially out of this one. So we have Torment of Scarabs, Cruel Reality, and one of the best, Overwhelming Splendor. But that's not the best card that came out of Amonkhet block. And that's got to be Anointed Procession. It's an enchantment that triggers Daxos, but also doubles up all of your crazy enchantment tokens that Daxos pumps out. Yeah, that's amazing. We also want to control the board a little bit, and curses do a very good job, but I've also really enjoyed the cards from Theros, the enchantment creatures. Agent of Erebos destroys graveyards, Spirit of the Labyrinth makes it hard to draw cards, and Eidolon of Rhetoric slows your opponents down. And you do want to slow your opponents down, casting only one spell per turn, and it doesn't really affect you so much. And if you slow down the game, the more likely you are to be able to pump that mana into your Daxos and create a huge army. So let's slow down the game with Sphere of Safety, Extinguish All Hope, which is great because it doesn't hit your enchantment creatures. Consulate Crackdown will crack down on all the other artifacts and enchantments, and Darksteel Mutation is great because it can lock down a commander, and that's something that is harder to do these days. So this is the Enchantment Matters deck, featuring Daxos the Returned. Now this next deck requires a little bit of a disclaimer. I got a message saying, hey, I lost my collection, I'll be okay, but I would like something. Can you please send me a signed copy of Hurricane? He described this to me using quite a bit of colorful language, but I'll summarize for you. The Hurricane is not going to define him or change him, and that by playing with the card, he's going to kind of be in control of the situation. And I loved the dark humor involved. I loved the real spirit of Commander players, and to be honest, the spirit of Texas kind of coming through and saying, you know what, this isn't going to define me. I'm going to rise up from this. So I sent him a copy of Hurricane signed, but I also included this. It's a water and flood tribal themed deck. And of course, the leader of this deck just has to be Lorthos the Tidemaker, sending huge tides at your opponent and locking down their board. And I didn't stop there. I included all of the great octopuses and leviathans, and of course, Tidal Force. It just had to be in there. And Stormtide Leviathan, just the storm that comes in with the tide. And if I'm going to be playing all this tribal synergy, I'm going to play Quests for Ula's Temple because that's actually just a fun card to play. And then again, what goes well with this tribal synergy and horrible humor, Whelming Wave, a wave that takes out everything except for these horrible big sea monsters. Well, we can keep going with this wipe out your opponent strategy with insensitive cards like Engulf the Shore or Coastal Breach. We can go even deeper with cards like Flood, Flash Flood, Flooded Shoreline, or Quicksilver Fountain, which puts flood counters on your opponent's lands. You know, I was debating with myself about whether I should make a video of this deck, but, you know, different people need different things, and some people needed a helping hand and a kind word, and some people need a big middle finger to Mother Nature and a laugh as you get to cleaning things up and playing some more Commander games. This has been Jumbo Commander with 4 decks in 4 minutes, and a quick update on what's going on with all the decks in Texas. If you're one of the people waiting on these decks, thank you for being patient. I've sent out about half of them, so 11 people will still be waiting a little bit longer as I wait for cards to come in to me. But just know, we're all still here for you. And I'll be back with even more Commander videos and awesome content.